All right. Hey there, everybody. This is Connor Pelham here for week number 4 of Connor's English Corner for November 13th, 2017. Today I have with me a guest, Riaz Mohammed. He got his invite for the English World Championships back in March at the Dallas, Texas regional. So he's here with me today to talk about the newly announced Springfest 2018. Why don't you say hi?
Hello, hello. I'm here.
All right. So, as I said, we're going to be talking about the Bushy Road Springfest 2018. It was just announced as the regional season for next spring. We won't be getting the Bushy Road Championship Series that we got for both the spring and autumn this year until next autumn. So, it'll be the autumn 2018 season. Instead, they decided to change things up and give us back the Springfest, which they've done in the past. So you're probably wondering, what is Springfest? So obviously it's going to be 2018 regional season. It has a new format, twice at least. They've done this format for Cardfight Vanguard in the past for spring regionals. Have you ever played in those, Riaz?
No, no. I've never entered Vanguard tournaments.
Okay. So it's a trio format, which we'll talk about in a little more detail later. So it's a new format twice and Buddy Fight for those of you that play that game. However, there is no World Championship for the spring season. It's something that people have complained about in the past with spring season, and they sort of fixed it for this year. But we're going back to having no World Championship for spring, unfortunately. So, the first step is the shop challenges, which for the spring, I believe you won one of yours for buy cards, right, Riaz?
Yes.
Yeah. So the spring, well, the shop challenges in the past gave buy cards, or this year. This year was sort of the first year they've done that. However, for this spring season, they won't give buy cards. Instead, it'll just be top 3 players will get promos. Well, they'll get a coupon to redeem a promo at regionals. Other than that, the shop challenges are going to be the same as they were in the spring. So I assume uh, both of us will just be grinding those out just to try to get experience and promos, because why not?
Right.
Though
Can
I
never
guess,
have too much promos.
yeah. Though I guess it's not as important to play in them or top them now for the spring season, since they aren't going to give those free round 1 wins.
Yeah.
All right, so for the actual big exciting part, the regional championships, we have the uh, price support shown on the right here. We don't have locations yet, so that will come in the future, hopefully. The um, there's a little description here on the left. It doesn't really show much, but it shows all the games, and it says down below at the bottom, 3 players in one team must use different clans, titles, or flags, just depending on the game. So not really a whole lot. Basically the same stuff as always, apart from the actual trio thing. I think the big issue here that a lot of people have is the prize support. So as I said, Riaz is qualified for Worlds this year. I'm not quite, but a lot of people were happy that Worlds, even though say Riaz won in the spring, he still got his invite to the Worlds at the end of the year, and both seasons gave Worlds invites. However, now all we get is what's shown on the right here: pins for top 8, playmat and certificate for top 4, a medal for top 3, and a promo for the champion. So what do you think of this, Riaz?
Well, it's it's unfortunate because in the past, at least Springfest went to a continental level, so you at least get to go travel to California and play there. But I guess up to top 4. It's been the same prize support we've always had. Uh, but I guess it's fine because it's free and you get to get these special, I guess, trinkets, mats, and promos. But I think what people are looking for, like they had more incentive before because a free trip to Japan like tops all of this support pretty easily.
Right, right. And I think it just sort of, when you had that trip to Worlds on the line, I think it sort of uh, it created a more competitive environment, which I think a lot of people were looking for. Um, though I know some people do like just sort of the casual atmosphere of regionals. Not really casual, but they don't want it to be like too super try hard and stuff. So I'm sure there's
Which
some people happy, some people not happy. But
I guess trios might be a way to like, I guess their angle on this is like to promote like more fun in the game. So it is kind of cool, to have your own team and try to go in there and like try to be the best team.
right.
Uh, so I guess if we're looking from a regional standpoint, the prize support is probably very much adequate,
Okay. Yeah.
especially for a free tournament. Like it's
Right,
free,
yeah.
so
Yeah, that's one thing. I don't get how people can really ever complain about any Bushiroad prize support since their regionals are free. Like, no matter what happens, you don't lose money going in apart from what you spend to travel and whatnot. Alright.
yeah.
So the trio format that we keep mentioning, it is something that Cardfight Vanguard players are going to be familiar with, but Vice Schwartz and Buddy Fight have not done this in the past. I think one of the big reasons behind that is that Vanguard regionals regularly have 200 or 300 people, whereas Vice Schwartz and Buddy Fight don't. So there haven't been as many, really enough people to do trio formats. So I'm sort of surprised that they're doing it now, since we haven't really seen the giant growth that I think it would have taken. But here we are with the trio format. So trio format is going to be teams of 3 players. Every team will have 3 players on it when you enter the regional. All 3 players must use a different title. So you can't have 2 people playing Kantai, or you can't just be a 3 Attack on Titan team or whatever. And it's effectively sort of a best of 3 format. Each person on the team still plays a best of 1 game, but between the teams, whichever team wins 2 of their 3 games gets the win for the round. And in the past, it hasn't mattered whether you won 2-1 or 3-0, so I doubt that'll change. But yeah, so it effectively, I guess, just gives you more games, but it also means that everyone on your team sort of has to be able to carry their weight. One person alone can't just carry through the tournament.
Yeah. I
So,
think
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think that different titles will be a big thing in a lot of places where there were high turnouts. Like if you take this year, for example, there were certain places that are like I remember like 30+% usage of SAO,
Right.
uh, and so forth. Now it might be forced like it's basically one in what every 3 will basically be a SAO player if let's say if everyone was playing SAO before. Now it's just only 1 out of like every 3 can play SAO.
Right, and I can only imagine that some of those Sal players are going to want to be, like, on the same team. So then you just have someone that's not playing it anymore.
So this at least also I guess forces the a balance in the team that let's just take example. Let's say like Sal was the best deck. Then if you had 3 Sal players, that might seem unfair to another team who just has like 2 PDF players and a Konosuba player of some sort,
Right,
something like
right,
that. So this diversifies the amount of sets that you'll see.
right. And, so I know one thing that a lot of people I heard over the weekend mention, and something I've thought about myself, is that the Vice Schwartz regionals there tend to be just sort of a handful of people that consistently top pretty much all the regionals they play in. And you'll usually see at least 1 or 2 of these names on every regional's results. And I think it's interesting when we get a trio format, because those players tend to pretty much most of the games they lose going through regionals are to each other. So I think it's gonna be interesting now getting a trio format where those players can be on the same team. Um, I know you, myself, a couple other names that pop up on regional tops quite often. Clinton Chan, Rujo Ghoshal, uh, these people that just keep topping regionals over and over again. What's gonna happen when they're just on the same team?
So you'll just see their names, I guess, more often. Who knows? That's probably what's gonna happen if they all team up together.
Yeah.
Uh, do we know how the matchups are determined after each one? I heard like there was some rumor going around that it's like all random pairs until the end. Like,
Um,
do you know how this is supposed to work?
so in Vanguard, what would happen is when you entered the regional, you would get three. Um, so normally when you enter the regionals now for individuals, you just get sort of a badge with your number on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got three badges that all had the same number on them, but one of them, so say one of them would be like 036A, one would be 036B, and one would be 036C. So each person on your team would get one of those, and then it would just be a Swiss pairing system, just like they use for individuals, where people with the same record are going to play each other. And then the A on each team would play each other, the B on each team would play each other, and the C on each team would play each other. So you sort of had to lock in your slot before the tournament, um, and then it would just go from there.
Okay.
So I would imagine the same thing is going to happen now for Weiss.
All right. That's some form of organization. That sounds good.
Yeah. So the trio tournaments have always been sort of nice in the past, though. I am wondering now with a lot of these regionals this season only had say like 80 to 100 people. So you're looking at probably around 30 teams at any given regional. How many rounds they're gonna run? Because I mean, we've seen them run like 5 round events for, I mean, upwards of 70 to 80 people. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering how many rounds of Swiss they're actually gonna do for the trio format. I'm expecting 4 to 5, which should both make a fairly decent top 8. I think 4 leaves like maybe one X1, like 1 to 2 X1s depending on size missing, and 5 guarantees all the X1s in
Okay.
roughly. Obviously depending on actual turnout, it could change, but it is gonna make for a shorter tournament, I guess.
Yeah, because each member would be playing at the same time, right?
Yeah.
That's how it works. Yeah.
Well, you've basically just got like 1/3 the number of people in the tournament. So
Yeah.
it's just fewer rounds, I would think.
Huh. Be interesting. I know Japan plays lots of trios.
Right, yeah. I guess that's another thing to mention. We mainly talk about the English format on here, but in Japan, for their regionals, at every regional, they have 2 tournaments. One is an individual tournament, and the other is a team tournament. Um, and they've always run, I believe, 5 rounds of Swiss for their team tournaments. But they've also had, of course, a lot more teams than we're probably going to have in the English circuit. I'm especially curious about some of the European regionals that only have a turnout of like 50 players, even in individuals.
Yeah. I guess one downside to the trio format is that a lot of people that are playing solo before, if they can't form a team, they might not be able to play. Or they might have to just team up with some random person around the area, and that may discourage them. So we'll see how this goes. This will
Right.
be interesting.
And I think sort of the other side of that is a lot of people that have friends that sort of play the game a little bit, just sort of casually for fun, but don't really like go to big events and stuff. I think this might serve as a way to sort of bring them
Pull
into
them
these
in.
events,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and I think that's something that always happened with Vanguard was you would get a lot of people that are like they'd have people that would just show up at their locals every now and then, but this event that would let them be on a team with someone and because I know a lot of people don't really want to go into regionals because they don't think they don't want to be serious about it. They know they're not gonna like win the event or whatever, and they don't want to go in just to maybe like win a couple games and lose a couple games and not get anywhere. But this sort of gives them a way to play and have fun in these big events with people they know and people they play with a lot, and not really have any, uh, I guess, downside to it. Like you're just going in and playing to have fun, and I think a lot of people do have a lot more fun in team formats when they're playing with people they know.
Hmm.
So I think it could go either way, where fewer people show up, or this brings in more people. Um, so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see.
I for one, even though it doesn't go to the regional for doesn't go to like a higher level or higher tier tournament, I'm actually kind of looking forward to this because it just seems like a fun format.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Uh, and the good thing is if we can bring in a lot of players to this, they might change their mind and may even enter the autumn circuit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that will
It's
be
good.
fun to see. So one thing you did mention already about representation. So this is something that is I'm really curious to see how it's gonna end up. Um, so as we just mentioned, we had a number of these events where the most represented deck was easily well over a quarter of the total tournament's representation. As much as in New Zealand, the 36.8% sword art representation.
Yeah.
Um, so in a format like trios, you wouldn't actually even be able to have a series hit 36.8%. But so I am curious as to whether people will people that say wanted to play sword art or want to play AOT will switch off of decks into other decks, and we might get a more diverse format. Or on the other hand, we could just end up seeing like one one third of the event is AOT and one third of the event is sword art.
Yeah, yeah. I think uh, I think it's also interesting. Like I remember you were saying when you were explaining the seeding earlier, right?
Right.
Like let's say numbers one, two, three, right? So one would fight another one, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people like I think you can use like some kind of tactical thing going on here and be like seat one. Let's say they put AOT, so someone could play a like I guess a lower level deck at like seat three and hope to never see an AOT player. And like
Right, right.
I,
That's always been something we've in Vanguard that's been like how like trying to figure out how people are arranging their teams.
so that's interesting because then someone else could think like, oh, a counter argument, like, oh, they're probably going to put their weakest one in C3, so we're going to put our strongest one in C3. Like, pretty interesting things will happen, I guess, behind the scenes.
Yeah, absolutely. That's always been something that we've done in Vanguard. Just try to figure out like are people going to put their strongest player in seat A? Should we put our strongest player in a lower one just to sort of try to guarantee the win? But yeah, that's always been a really interesting mechanic.
Right, but yeah, I think trios format will definitely diversify. You'll probably definitely see sets topping that you wouldn't normally see.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and I know in I don't know how much this has happened in Vanguard. I know occasionally a weird deck will sneak in, but I know often looking at Japanese trio results, you'll see a team that's like two decks that are really you recognize like you would expect to see, and then their third deck is just some random cool deck that they threw on there. Like an English equivalent of that, I guess like you see a winning team that's like Attack on Titan, Sword Art, and then like Bakemonogatari or like Persona 4 or something. Though I guess we'll finally have Persona 5 by the time this season rolls around.
Yeah.
So that'll also be one thing. We'll have I guess Sword Art will be out before Worlds for this season. So
Hmm.
Persona 5 is the only new set we know so far that will be making its first appearance in the spring format.
Right.
But yeah, so I think yeah, I don't think there's much else to say about the diversity issue. Maybe it fixes things. Maybe this is their way of trying to get people to try out other decks besides Sword Art and AOT. Um, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. A lot of this is just speculation because we've never had a format like this before for Weiss.
Yeah, because I was curious to know when I saw so much Sao representation, if this was Japan, Sao would probably be on the ban list. But for English, there is no ban list, so I was curious to know what they were going to do if something reaches too high of a representation.
Right.
So maybe this might have been their answer to it, though we don't know their true plans. But this could have been like, hey, let's do this and see what happens.
Right. Right.
Who knows if this works out well? They might maybe I guess up the prize support for trios.
Yeah, that would be something interesting. Um, I guess their biggest reason behind not having a worlds format for trios right now is just because like all the logistics of trying to get like groups of 3 people to
Yeah,
one place for a tournament at the same time. Like
it's
I,
also
I can
pretty
imagine
costly.
I could imagine that would be a pain to try to get that many people, like that many specific groups of people in one place at one time rather than just flying out individuals. Um,
Uh, yeah, yeah. Another thing on the prize support, because there is no. Well, I guess this will be more on towards the autumn circuit. I guess not really the spring, but I was gonna say that if they're not sending people to Japan for this, hopefully in the autumn, maybe more than just first place, because that would just lessen the amount of people going to Japan.
yeah, that's
Uh,
a good point actually. I didn't really think about the effect that that could have.
but I guess that would be for another. I guess when we find out what the autumn circuit's doing.
Right, right. On their website where they announced the Spring Fest, they did say that the autumn would be the Bushiroad Championship Series again,
Hmm.
which is the
Yeah.
same name they used for this year. So I can imagine it would be the same as this year, but since it is only half as long, that is an interesting thought as to what differences they might make to price support.
Yeah.
All right. So yep, I think that's all we've got on there. One thing I did want to mention about the shop challenges as well. The regionals are trio format, but shop challenges aren't. Because I know a lot of the shop challenges in general were just rather small. Um,
Yeah.
and trying to get that many, like trying to get actual teams together for just a local shop tournament could be a bit problematic. Like I don't think you'd have enough teams to actually have a tournament. Um, which is why they've instead of going for buy cards, they've decided to instead use the just promos and have it as an individual format for shop challenges.
Yeah, like you can think of a shop challenge as like a separate entity. Like it's just your normal local tournament with more prize support.
Right, right. I think that's a good way to look at it. So yeah,
Um,
hopefully we'll get locations announced soon. Um, if we're lucky by the end of the month, but if we're not, probably around the time that Worlds takes place, or maybe a little before.
yep.
I know for myself personally, a lot of the teams I'm planning on playing on might change depending on where the regionals are. But I know a lot of people at my locals have been trying to figure out who they want on their team for all 3 games, really.
Yeah, same here.
Well, all right. So that's all we've got this time, I think. Hopefully we'll have more information on the spring circuit soon, and I'll let you guys know. Thank you for watching. Comment, subscribe, all that. Thank you, Riaz, for coming on to talk about this with me.
No problem, no problem.
All right, and we will see you guys next week with another deck discussion on Connor's English Corner. Thanks.